stop scrolling for just a second because I need to ask you something. When was the last time you walked into a room and completely forgot why you went in there? Or you were mid-sentence talking to someone you've known for years and their name just vanished? Not stuck on the tip of your tongue, just gone. If that has happened to you, and especially if it's been happening more often lately, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes because what I'm about to share could genuinely change how your brain ages from this point forward. Here's the truth nobody tells you enough. Your brain is not doomed the moment you turn 60. It is not on some fixed countdown clock where forgetfulness is the only possible outcome. Your brain, just like your muscles, your heart, and your lungs, responds to how you treat it every single day. And today, I'm going to walk you through 7 daily habits that real people, real families, and real caregivers have used to help support memory, focus, and mental sharpness well into their 70s, 80s, and beyond. Before we dive in, I want to ask you to do one small thing. Type the number of the habit that surprises you the most in the comments below. I read every single comment, and honestly, this channel grows because of people like you who take 30 seconds to share their thoughts. So don't just watch this passively. Comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've noticed memory changes in yourself for a loved one. Let's build a community here that actually talks to each other about this stuff, because too many people are quietly struggling with this alone, and that needs to change. Now, let's get into it. I want to start by sharing something a viewer told me a few weeks ago, because I think about it often. She said her mother, who is 78, started keeping her car keys in the freezer without realizing it, and it terrified the entire family. They assumed the worst immediately. But after a visit to the doctor, it turned out her mother was simply exhausted, dehydrated, and dealing with a medication side effect that was making her foggy. Once those things were addressed, her memory bounced back significantly. I share that story not to dismiss real concerns, because sometimes memory changes absolutely do need medical attention, and we'll talk about that honestly later in this video. I share it because it's a powerful reminder that our brains are deeply connected to everything else happening in our bodies: our sleep, our nutrition, our stress levels, our medications, our emotional health. When one piece is out of balance, memory is often one of the first things to show it. That's really the heart of what this video is about. Your daily habits are not separate from your brain health. They're the foundation of it. First, let's talk honestly about what's normal and what's not, because this distinction matters more than almost anything else in this video. Occasionally forgetting where you put your glasses does not mean something catastrophic is happening in your brain. Struggling to recall a name you haven't used in months is not automatically a red flag. These little slips are part of being human, and they become slightly more common as we get older simply because our brains are processing decades of accumulated information. Think about it. Your brain at 65 has stored roughly 4 or 5 times more information than it had at 25. Of course, retrieval takes a little longer sometimes. That's not decline, that's just a very, very full filing cabinet. But here's the thing. While occasional forgetfulness is normal, that doesn't mean we should just throw up our hands and accept whatever happens next. There is a real difference between normal aging and something that needs medical attention, and I'll talk more about that distinction later in this video. For now, what I want you to understand is this. There is an enormous amount of research showing that daily lifestyle habits directly influence how well your brain functions as you age. This isn't about a magic pill or an expensive supplement. It's about small, consistent choices that add up to something powerful over time. So, let's start with habit number 1. And honestly, this might be the single most underrated one on this entire list. Move your body every single day. I know, you've heard exercise is good for you approximately 11,000 times in your life, but stick with me here because I want you to understand why movement matters so specifically for your brain, not just your waistline or your heart. When you move your body, even gently, you increase blood flow throughout your entire circulatory system, and that includes the blood vessels feeding your brain. Your brain is an incredibly hungry organ.
Even though it's only about 2% of your total body weight, it uses roughly 20% of your body's energy supply. That means it absolutely depends on strong, healthy circulation to function well. When you sit for long stretches of time, day after day, that circulation slows down, and over months and years, that can quietly affect how sharp and alert you feel. Now, I am not telling you that you need to run marathons or lift heavy weights at the gym 5 days a week. Please don't feel like this has to be intense to count. A slow, comfortable walk around your neighborhood for 15 or 20 minutes, gentle stretching in your living room while you watch the morning news, dancing in your kitchen to a song you loved in your 20s, swimming a few laps at the community pool, light chair exercises if standing for long periods is difficult for you. All of these count. All of these matter. What's beautiful about movement is it doesn't just help your brain directly through blood flow, it also improves your mood, helps regulate your sleep, strengthens your balance so you're less likely to fall, and helps you maintain independence in your daily life. All of these things circle back and support your cognitive health in ways that are deeply connected. If you're just getting started, don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one small, realistic goal. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk after breakfast. Maybe it's 5 minutes of stretching before bed. Start there and let your body tell you when it's ready for more. And if you have any medical conditions, joint problems, or balance concerns, please talk to your doctor or a physical therapist about which activities are safest and most appropriate for you specifically. This video is meant to inspire you and inform you, not replace personalized medical guidance. Now, here's my question for you. What's your favorite way to move your body? Do you prefer walking outside, or do you like something more structured like a class or swimming? Drop it in the comments, because I promise you, someone reading this is looking for inspiration, and your answer might be exactly what they need to hear today.
And before we move on, I want to gently push back on a myth that a lot of people believe without even realizing it. Many people assume that walking is too easy to actually make a difference, so they either don't bother or they feel discouraged because they can't do more intense exercise. I want you to let go of that idea completely. Research on older adults consistently shows that regular, moderate movement, the kind that raises your heart rate just slightly and gets you breathing a little deeper, is associated with better cognitive performance over time compared to a sedentary lifestyle. You are not competing with anyone. You are not trying to out-exercise your 30-year-old self. You are simply trying to move a little more consistently than you did last week. That's the whole game, and it's a game you can absolutely win. Let's move on to habit number 2. Challenge your brain on purpose. Your brain is a lot like a muscle in one very important way. It thrives on being used, and it can become a little sluggish when it isn't regularly challenged. Think about your daily routine for a moment. How much of your day involves genuinely new information versus repeating the same familiar patterns you've done 1,000 times before? Driving the same route to the same store, watching the same types of shows, having similar conversations with the same people about the same topics. There's nothing wrong with routine, and honestly, routine is comforting and important, especially as we get older. But your brain also needs moments of genuine novelty and challenge to stay sharp. This is where mental stimulation comes in. And the good news is that this can be incredibly enjoyable, not a chore at all. Reading a book, especially something outside your usual genre, forces your brain to build new mental images, follow new characters, and process new vocabulary. Learning a new recipe requires you to follow sequential steps, measure ingredients, and adapt on the fly if something doesn't go as quite as planned. Crossword puzzles and word searches engage your memory and vocabulary retrieval skills. Strategy games like chess, bridge, or even certain video games require planning, prediction, and problem solving. Learning a few phrases in a new language activates parts of your brain related to memory and pattern recognition. Picking up an instrument you played decades ago or trying one for the very first time builds new neural pathways connecting movement, sound, and memory. The key word here is challenge.
If an activity has become so automatic that you can do it without thinking, it's probably not offering your brain much of a workout anymore. That's not a bad thing, by the way. Comfortable, easy activities are relaxing and valuable too, but make sure you're also including something in your week that genuinely makes you think, that makes you pause and problem solve, that maybe even frustrates you a little bit before you figure it out. And here's some good news for those of you thinking, I don't have hours to dedicate to brain games. You don't need hours. Even 10 or 15 minutes of focused, challenging mental activity done consistently can become a meaningful part of a healthy daily routine. Consistency matters far more than duration. So tell me in the comments, what's one new skill or hobby you've always wanted to try but haven't gotten around to yet? Maybe writing this down publicly is exactly the nudge you need to finally start. I'd genuinely love to know. I also want to mention something a lot of people don't consider, which is the difference between passive and active mental engagement. Watching television, even educational programming, tends to be a fairly passive experience. Your brain absorbs information, but it isn't required to generate much on its own. Compare that to something like playing cards with a friend, where you have to remember the rules, track what's been played, plan your next move, and adapt when things don't go as expected. That is a completely different level of mental engagement. This doesn't mean you need to cut out relaxing activities like watching your favorite shows. It simply means it helps to balance that passive time with activities that ask your brain to actively participate, create, and problem solve. Now let's talk about habit number 3, and this is one that so many people underestimate. Protect your sleep like it's precious, because it truly is. If you are not sleeping well, your memory will suffer. This isn't an exaggeration, it's simply how the brain works. Sleep is not just a time when your body rests, it is an active, essential process during which your brain performs critical maintenance. During deep sleep stages, your brain works to consolidate memories, essentially filing away information and experiences from your day into longer-term storage. It also clears out metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking hours. Without adequate quality sleep, this disruption gets disrupted, and that disruption can show up the next day as fogginess, irritability, and yes, memory lapses. Here's something important I want to address directly. Many older adults, and honestly many of their family members too, assume that poor sleep is simply part of getting older and that nothing can be done about it. I want to gently push back on that idea. Yes, sleep patterns do naturally shift somewhat as we age. You might find yourself waking earlier or sleeping slightly lighter than you did in your 20s. That's normal. But consistently poor, unrefreshing sleep night after night is not something you should simply accept and live with indefinitely. So what can you actually do about this? Start by creating a consistent bedtime and wake-up schedule even on weekends. Your body's internal clock, sometimes called your circadian rhythm, thrives on predictability. Going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every day helps regulate this internal clock and can genuinely improve sleep quality over time. Next, take a look at your bedroom environment. Is it quiet? Is it dark? Is the temperature comfortable? Small adjustments like blackout curtains, a white noise machine, or simply decluttering the space can make a surprisingly big difference. Try to limit stimulating activities in the hour or two before bed. That means putting down the phone, turning off the news, and avoiding intense or upsetting conversations right before you try to sleep. Instead, consider a calming wind-down routine. Reading a physical book, listening to soft music, gentle stretching, or quiet conversation with a loved one can all help signal to your body that it's time to relax.
Caffeine is another factor worth mentioning. Many people don't realize how long caffeine actually stays active in the body. It can take 6 hours or more for your body to process even half of the caffeine from your afternoon coffee or tea. If you're struggling with sleep, try to limit caffeine intake to the morning hours only and see if that makes a difference for you. Now, I do want to flag something important here. If you find yourself snoring loudly on a regular basis, waking up gasping or choking, or feeling extremely exhausted even after what should be a full night of sleep, please talk to a healthcare professional. These can be signs of sleep disorders, such as sleep apnea, that genuinely affect memory and concentration and often require proper medical evaluation and treatment. This isn't something to just push through on your own. I'm curious, what does your bedtime routine look like right now? Are you someone who sleeps like a baby, or is this an area where you're genuinely struggling? Let me know in the comments, because I think a lot of people watching this right now could use some encouragement that they're not alone in this. One more thing worth mentioning here. Naps can be wonderful, and there's nothing wrong with resting during the day if your body needs it. But if you find that long or late afternoon naps are making it harder to fall asleep at night, it may help to keep naps shorter, perhaps 20 to 30 minutes, and earlier in the day. Everybody's body responds a little differently, so pay attention to what actually works for you rather than following a rigid rule that doesn't fit your life. Let's move to habit number 4. Eat in a way that nourishes both your brain and your heart. I want to start this section by saying something that might be a relief to hear. There is no single miracle food that will magically preserve your memory. I know that's not the exciting answer people sometimes want, but it's the honest one. What actually matters, based on a large and growing body of research, is your overall pattern of eating over time, not any one specific ingredient. Think of your brain as an incredibly sophisticated piece of machinery that needs a steady, reliable supply of quality fuel to function properly. Just like a car running on poor quality fuel will eventually run poorly, a brain consistently fed a diet heavy in processed foods, added sugars, and unhealthy fats may not perform at its best either. So, what does a brain-friendly eating pattern actually look like in practice? It's built around plenty of vegetables and fruits in a wide variety of colors, whole grains instead of heavily refined ones, beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, fish and other nutritious protein sources, leafy greens like spinach and kale, berries like blueberries and strawberries, walnuts, oats, and fatty fish are frequently highlighted in nutrition research related to brain and heart health. These aren't exotic superfoods you need to order from a specialty store. Many of them are probably already in your local grocery store, and some might even be sitting in your kitchen right now. At the same time, it's worth paying attention to how much highly processed food, added sugar, and unhealthy fat you're regularly consuming. This doesn't mean you can never enjoy a treat again, and I want to be really clear about that. It means being mindful of your overall pattern rather than obsessing over any single meal or snack. And here's a factor that's incredibly easy to overlook: hydration. Something as simple as not drinking enough water throughout the day can leave you feeling tired, foggy, and less able to concentrate. Many older adults naturally feel less thirsty than they did when they were younger, which means dehydration can sneak up without an obvious warning sign like a dry mouth. Try to keep water nearby throughout the day and consider herbal teas or water-rich foods like cucumbers and watermelon if plain water isn't appealing to you. Small, sustainable changes tend to work far better than dramatic overnight overhauls. Maybe this week you simply add one extra vegetable to dinner. Maybe you swap your usual sugary snack for a handful of walnuts or berries. Maybe you commit to drinking one extra glass of water each day. These small shifts, repeated consistently, genuinely add up over months and years. What's one food you already eat regularly that you'd consider brain healthy? I'd love to see everyone share their favorites in the comments below. It might just give someone watching a new idea for their next grocery list. I also want to gently address something that comes up a lot in the comments on videos like this one. People often ask whether they need to take a specific supplement or vitamin for their memory. My honest answer is that this is genuinely a conversation to have with your own doctor, because your individual health history, current medications, and any existing deficiencies all matter enormously here. What works for one person is not automatically right for another, and taking something without guidance can sometimes cause more harm than good, especially if it interacts with medications you're already taking. A balanced, whole food eating pattern discussed here is something almost everyone can benefit from safely. Specific supplementation is a much more personal decision that deserves a real conversation with a healthcare provider who knows your full picture. Now, habit number 5, and this one honestly doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Stay socially connected with the people around you. Here's something that might surprise you. Meaningful social interaction is genuinely one of the most powerful forms of mental exercise available to us, and yet it's one of the most commonly overlooked pieces of brain health advice. Think about what actually happens in your brain during a real conversation with another person. You're processing what they're saying, formulating your own thoughts and responses, reading facial expressions and tone of voice, recalling shared memories, and often multitasking between listening and thinking ahead. That's an extraordinary amount of cognitive activity happening all at once, and it happens so naturally that we rarely appreciate it for the brain workout that it actually is. Unfortunately, for many older adults, opportunities for regular social interaction can quietly shrink over time. Retirement removes the built-in daily interactions that come with a workplace. Friends and family members may move away, become busier with their own lives, or sadly pass away. Physical mobility challenges can make it harder to get out and see people the way you once did. All of this can lead to a gradual, often unnoticed reduction in
Meaningful human connection. And that reduction can have real effects on emotional well-being and cognitive engagement. The encouraging news is that rebuilding social connection doesn't require a dramatic life change, it requires intention. Regularly calling or video chatting with a friend or family member, joining a local community group, whether that's centered around a hobby, a faith community, or a shared interest. Taking a class, whether it's an exercise class, an art class, or a lecture series at a local library or community center. Volunteering for a cause you care about, which offers the powerful combination of social interaction and a sense of purpose. Participating in a hobby alongside others rather than always doing it alone, like joining a book club instead of just reading solo, or a walking group instead of always walking by yourself. Even something as simple as a weekly phone call with a friend or a regular coffee date with a neighbor can become a meaningful, protective habit for both your emotional well-being and your cognitive health. Your brain doesn't just need information to stay sharp, it needs connection, relationships, and meaningful shared experiences. So here's my question for you today, and I really want you to answer this one. Who is someone you could reach out to this week? Maybe someone you haven't talked to in a while. Write their name or even just their relationship to you in the comments. Making it public might just be the nudge that helps you actually follow through and make that call. I also want to speak directly to anyone watching this who feels like reaching out to people is harder now than it used to be, maybe because of pride, maybe because of fear of being a burden, or maybe simply because it's been so long that it feels awkward to reconnect. I understand that feeling completely, and I want to gently encourage you anyway. Most people are genuinely happy to hear from someone they care about, even after a long silence. A short, simple message like, "I was thinking about you today and wanted to say hello," is almost always welcomed far more warmly than we expect. Don't let time or awkwardness keep you from something that could genuinely brighten both your day and theirs. Let's talk about habit number 6. Reduce stress and give your mind regular moments to rest. Chronic, ongoing stress does something specific and measurable to your brain and body. When you're under constant stress, your body remains in a heightened state of alert, releasing stress hormones like cortisol on an ongoing basis. Over long periods, this can interfere with concentration, disrupt sleep, and make it genuinely harder to focus on and retain new information. If you've ever tried to remember something important while feeling overwhelmed or anxious, you already know firsthand how much stress can interfere with clear thinking. This is why building small, regular moments of relaxation into your day isn't a luxury or something reserved for people with lots of free time. It's a genuine part of taking care of your brain, just as important in its own way as diet and exercise. The beautiful thing about stress reduction is that it doesn't require anything complicated or expensive. Just 5 to 10 minutes of slow, deep breathing can activate your body's natural relaxation response. Gentle stretching combined with mindful breathing can ease physical tension while calming your mind. If prayer or meditation is meaningful to you, even a few quiet minutes can provide a genuine sense of peace and grounding. Simply sitting outdoors, listening to birds, feeling sunlight or a gentle breeze can be remarkably restorative. Listening to calming music you love can shift your entire mood within minutes. And a peaceful, unhurried walk without any particular destination or agenda gives your mind space to slow down and reset. The goal here isn't to eliminate stress from your life entirely. That's simply not realistic for anyone. The goal is to create small, regular pockets of time throughout your day when your nervous system gets a genuine chance to downshift and rest. I do want to say something important here too. If you find yourself experiencing persistent anxiety, ongoing sadness, or emotional distress that doesn't seem to lift, please don't dismiss it or assume it's just something you have to live with. These feelings deserve real attention and support, and speaking with a healthcare professional or counselor can make a genuine difference. There's no shame whatsoever in reaching out for that kind of support. In fact, I'd argue it's one of the bravest and wisest things you can do for yourself. What's your personal go-to method for unwinding and calming your mind? Is it a walk, quiet time with a cup of tea, music, prayer, something else entirely? Share it in the comments. You might introduce someone else to a relaxation technique they've never tried before. I also want to mention that stress reduction doesn't need to look the same every single day, and it doesn't need to be scheduled with rigid precision. Some days, 10 minutes of quiet breathing in a chair by the window might be exactly what you need. Other days, it might be pulling weeds in the garden, or simply sitting on the porch with a cup of tea watching the world go by. The specific activity matters far less than the intention behind it, giving your mind permission to slow down, even briefly, in the middle of a busy or stressful day. And finally, habit number 7. Use simple, practical memory strategies without any hesitation or embarrassment. I want to address something directly because I think it holds a lot of people back. There can sometimes be a quiet sense of embarrassment or reluctance around using memory aids, almost as if needing a reminder means you're somehow failing or admitting decline. I want to completely reframe that idea for you right now. Using tools to support your memory is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of intelligence and self-awareness. Successful people of every age, in every walk of life, rely on calendars, lists, and reminders constantly. There is nothing about turning 60, 70, or 80 that should change that. So let's talk about some practical strategies you can start using immediately. Keep a calendar, whether it's a physical one on your wall or a digital one on your phone, and use it consistently for appointments, birthdays, and important tasks. Write appointments the moment you make them, rather than trying to hold them in your head. Create shopping lists before you head to the store, rather than relying purely on memory while you're there. Use reminder alarms on your phone for medications, appointments, or tasks you tend to forget. And designate a consistent spot for frequently misplaced items like keys, glasses, or your wallet, so you're not searching for them every single day.
Beyond these external tools, there are also internal memory techniques that can genuinely help. Repetition and association are two of the most effective and simplest strategies available. When you meet someone new, try repeating their name naturally back to them during the conversation. For example, saying something like, "It's wonderful to meet you, Margaret," helps reinforce that name in your memory far more effectively than simply hearing it once and moving on. Similarly, when you set something down somewhere, say it out loud to yourself. Something as simple as saying, "I'm putting my keys on the kitchen counter," creates a stronger memory trace than silently performing the action. These techniques might sound almost too simple to matter, but that simplicity is exactly what makes them so effective and sustainable. You don't need to memorize a complicated system. You just need to build these small habits into your everyday routine, and over time, they become second nature. Do you already use any of these memory strategies in your own life, or is there one from this list you're going to try starting today? Tell me in the comments, because I genuinely think seeing what works for other people helps all of us build better habits ourselves. One more small tip before we move forward. Some people find it helpful to create simple routines around commonly forgotten tasks, almost like building a personal checklist you follow automatically. For example, before leaving the house, some people mentally run through wallet, keys, phone, glasses every single time, turning it into an automatic habit rather than something they have to consciously think about and worry over. Over time, these little checklists become second nature, and they take a surprising amount of mental pressure off your day. Now, before we wrap up, I want to address something really important, and I'd ask that you listen closely to this part. Not every memory change should automatically be blamed on simply getting older. Sometimes, forgetfulness can actually be connected to other factors entirely. Things like certain medications and their side effects, ongoing sleep problems, depression or anxiety, nutritional deficiencies, thyroid imbalances, or even undiagnosed hearing or vision difficulties that make it harder to fully absorb information in the first place. These are all things a healthcare professional can help identify and address, often with real, meaningful improvement once properly treated. And yes, it's also true that certain more significant and persistent patterns of memory loss can be associated with underlying neurological conditions. This is exactly why paying attention to changes over time matters so much. A single forgotten name is not a cause for alarm. But if you or someone who loves you notices that memory difficulties are becoming more frequent, are clearly getting worse over time, or are starting to interfere with everyday responsibilities, things like managing finances, keeping track of medications, preparing meals safely, navigating familiar places, or handling normal day-to-day tasks, that is genuinely worth bringing up with a healthcare professional. I want to be very clear that this video and the 7 habits we've walked through together are not a substitute for medical evaluation or professional care. They are not a cure for dementia or any other medical condition. What they are a foundation, a set of genuinely evidence-informed lifestyle habits that can support your overall brain health as part of a broader picture that includes proper medical attention when it's needed. Early evaluation matters enormously. If there is an underlying, treatable cause behind memory changes, identifying it early gives you and your healthcare provider the best possible chance to address it effectively. And if it turns out to be something else entirely, having that clarity and a plan in place is still far better than living with uncertainty and worry. So, as we bring this together, I want to leave you with something practical, not overwhelming. You do not need to adopt all 7 of these habits starting tomorrow morning. Please don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. Real, lasting change comes from small, consistent steps, not dramatic, overnight transformations that are impossible to sustain.
Instead, I want you to pick just one single habit from everything we've discussed today and commit to trying it this week. Maybe that means taking a short, gentle walk tomorrow morning before breakfast. Maybe it means reading for 15 quiet minutes before bed instead of scrolling on your phone. Maybe it's finally picking up the phone and calling that friend you've been meaning to reach out to. Maybe it's simply going to bed at the same time tonight as you did last night, giving your body that consistency it craves. Maybe it's adding one extra vegetable to tonight's dinner. Maybe it's spending 5 minutes quietly practicing slow, intentional breathing. Or maybe it's as simple as writing down the things you need to remember today instead of trying to hold everything in your head at once. Small habits, repeated consistently over time, become remarkably powerful. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. It's about consistently moving toward better brain health, one small, manageable choice at a time. And here's something I really want you to internalize. Getting older does not mean you have to stop caring for your brain, and it certainly does not mean decline is inevitable or unavoidable. Your brain at every single age remains capable of adapting, learning, and responding to the care you give it. Your brain is part of your overall health, just like your heart and your muscles, and the daily choices you make truly do matter, even when the results aren't immediately visible. So if you're over 60 and you've noticed some occasional forgetfulness creeping in, here's my honest advice. Don't panic, but please don't ignore it either. Start with these 7 habits. Pay close attention to your overall physical and emotional health, and if anything feels concerning, persistent, or like it's genuinely getting worse, please talk to a healthcare professional. That conversation could bring you real peace of mind, or it could open the door to support and treatment that makes a genuine difference in your daily life. Your brain has carried you through decades of memories, relationships, challenges, and joys. It deserves attention, care, and respect at every single stage of life, not just when something starts to feel wrong. I also want to speak for a moment to anyone watching this on behalf of a parent or a spouse rather than for themselves. If that's you, thank you for caring enough to spend this time learning. Supporting someone you love through memory changes can be exhausting, emotional, and at times frightening, and it's easy to lose sight of your own well-being while focused on theirs. Please remember that these 7 habits can often be shared activities.
A walk together, a meal cooked together, a phone call made together, a puzzle worked on side by side. Not only does this support your loved one, it supports you too, and it creates connection in the process, which, as we talked about earlier, is powerful for both of you. You don't have to carry this alone, and neither do they. And if you're someone who has been quietly worried about your own memory while watching this video, I want you to know that noticing is actually a good sign. It means you're paying attention, you're engaged, and you're already taking the first step by seeking out information and thinking about what you can do. That alone puts you ahead of where you were yesterday. Give yourself credit for that. Before you go, I have one final request, and I really mean this. Scroll down right now and leave a comment. Tell me which of these 7 habits you're going to try first. Tell me if you're watching this for yourself or for someone you love, like a parent or a grandparent. Tell me where you're tuning in from today. I read these comments. I respond to as many as I possibly can. And honestly, this channel exists because of this community we're building together, one comment, one conversation at a time. If this video gave you something valuable today, please consider sharing it with a friend, a parent, or a family member who could use a little encouragement and practical guidance on staying mentally sharp and healthy. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel because we release simple, practical videos just like this one, covering healthy aging, stronger muscles, better sleep, heart health, nutrition, mobility, and everyday wellness for life after 60. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Take care of that incredible brain of yours, and I'll see you in the next video.